Hey there, it's Aaron, and it is March 22nd, 2016, and it is a little after 11 a.m. in the morning. If it be pretty dark in here if it weren't the morning, so we're 11 at night. I thought I would make a video and give a little bit of an update on what I've been doing and buying in terms of music. Again, what I have to share, it's not a lot. Uh, just because it's that way, and I think I've been getting a little bit better at, knowing what I want, what can wait, and in terms of how much I want something. So, what I want to talk about are two albums that I've recently purchased. One on CD, the other on iTunes. After I talk about these two albums, I'm going to talk about somebody else. So, let's get things started here. Alright, so, first off, which one did I get? I think I got this one first, yeah. Alright, the first thing I want to talk about is this. Iggy Pop, Post-Pop Depression. This is Iggy Pop's new studio album, his first in, I think, 2012, so that would have been 4 years ago, right? Yeah. And that album was, I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing this right, Prairies? Like, his last studio albums were French-themed albums, oddly enough. Preliminaries and a Prairies. And obviously, he did reunite with the Stooges and made two more albums, The Weirdness in 2007, and then just about almost 3 years ago, Ready to Die, which I thought was a pretty good album. But now, with the Ashton brothers dead, and even Steve McKay, who passed away last year, it looks like Iggy is trying to stick, or is going back to his solo career. Now, according to him, this is probably going to be his last album. I don't know about that. But if it is, this is a hell of a way to go out. This is a great album. So, Iggy worked on this album with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. He plays on the album and produces the album. So this is a really good album. I really like it. I've listened to it about 3 or 4 times. Now, when it comes to Iggy Pop's solo career, not critically the most consistent, and I'll admit the only albums I have of his solo-wise, okay, for the Stooges I have the first 3. I need to get my own copy of The Weirdness, just so I can say I have all the Stooges studio albums, and I have Ready to Die as well. So, with his solo career, I have The Idiot, Lust for Life, and New Values. And then that's it. I have recently listened to more of his solo material online. The albums I've heard are Soldier, which I don't think is that bad of an album. I may actually get that one. Party, which is, I think it was just his attempt at being commercial, or making a commercial album, and it's sort of silly. And one that's really hard to find, Zombie Birdhouse. Yeah, the CD's out of print, so you gotta go get the vinyl. He really hasn't made anything, critically acclaimed as those first 2 albums that David Bowie produced, being The Idiot and Lust for Life. So, from what I read in articles, this was supposed to be sort of musically a sequel to those 2 albums, or just his earlier material, or just trying to go back to what he used to do. And it comes pretty close. It's very modern, but it comes pretty darn close to capturing how great those 2 albums were. So, in terms of favorites, I like Break Into Your Heart, Gardenia, Sunday, Vulture, and Paraguay, which is a great, it's the longest song off the album, a little over 6 minutes, so it's a sort of a mini epic. I really like it. And the CD here, it's packaged like an LP. I'm sure this is what the LP looks like. Comes with a booklet here with Iggy on here, and picture of the band that he played with for the album, and inside here are just the lyrics, liner notes, and then and this is the CD itself. So yeah, recommended. The next album that I'm going to show you is an album I bought from iTunes. It's by Roky Erickson of the 13th Floor Elevators, and it's his first solo album, in a way. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but the album that I got of his is called The Evil One. Now, I've said this before about any MP3 purchases, I always put them on CDR, but I have not put this on CDR yet, so I'm just going to show it on my iPhone here. So there it is. The Evil One. Now, from what I know about this album, it was recorded sometime in the late 1970s, and it was produced by Stu Cook, who was the bassist of Creedence Clearwater Revival. And Roky Erickson made this album, and it was released as almost 2 different albums in the US and the UK. In the UK, I think the album was called 5 Symbols, and then here it was called The Evil One. Now, in recent reissues, the most recent being on a label called Light in the Attic Records, and even reissues before that, they have since combined those 2 albums and put them into one 50-minute album. So I was going nuts over which album or which track and list should I listen to, so I just decided to go with the one that they put on. Erickson was in the 13th Floor Elevators, which I do have a whole set of their albums on the budget set things, which I've talked about on my channel before. Love, love, love those budget sets. You get, like a couple albums for some $20. Really good deal. Recommended viewing, try and see the documentary that was made on him a couple years ago called You're Gonna Miss Me, which gives you a little bit of insight as to what his career was and his life at that point when the movie was being made. The guy's been through a lot. I think it was sometime after the 13th Floor Elevators, his mother had him put into an asylum. I don't know when he came out. He came out sometime in the 1970s, and then he made this album. And he kept making albums, but the guy was just not the healthiest guy and just kept living with his mother or something like that. I don't know. But worth checking out that movie. You're Gonna Miss Me. Good documentary, and should give you more information about the guy. My favorite song would be Two-Headed Dog. Great rocker. All of these songs are very horror themed, which he was sort of obsessed with at the time, I think. I Walked with the Zombies, Night the Vampire, Cool Night for Alligators, I Think of Demons, Bloody Hammer. Yeah, every song on here is really good. I really like this album. Very good. Highly recommended. Now, as to his other albums, I looked at his discography, and it's a mess. Not in terms of music, but just how much he has out there. I think most of what has been released are archival collections and bootlegs. So after narrowing it down, I think he's had about probably some 5 studio albums, this being one of them. I don't know if I'm going to get those other albums of his. I've seen pretty good reviews on them. But from what I'm getting, yeah, he's had about probably 5 studio albums. The next thing I want to talk about is Keith Emerson. As you may have heard, about a week or 2 ago, he died, age 71, and turns out he committed suicide, which is really a downer. So, the guy lived a pretty long life. I mean, I'm not his biggest fan, so I don't know too much about him. I mean, I've been reading like headlines of articles in which his former bandmates have said that the guy was really not all that happy recently, or that he was pretty depressed. So it is sad, nevertheless. And the guy was a very, very talented musician, very talented keyboardist. Um, and obviously he was a member of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which is what I'm going to show here. The three uh, albums I have of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This is all I have by the band. I don't have anything on CD, cassette, or anything else. I just have. And yes, I do know he was in another band before joining Emerson, Lake and Palmer, as were the other guys in the group. Keith Emerson. Now, from what I know, Keith Emerson was in a band called The Nice. Greg Lake was in King Crimson for their first and second album, I think, most of their second album. And then Carl Palmer was in Atomic Rooster, and then before that he was in The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. And then the three of them together, they formed Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, I will be honest, I didn't get these albums until probably like 1 or 2 years ago. The thing about Emerson, Lake and Palmer is that they really, really get picked on. I think if there were a list of musicians that are constantly hated on by music critics and whoever else, they would be on that list. Some people found ELP to be very over the top, pretentious, but despite despite how much crap they were getting from from music critics, they were pretty successful. So I think part of the hate they were getting made me stay away from their music, but I decided to go for it a couple years ago, and I think they're a good band. They're a good band. I can see why some people would find them pretentious and over the top, but it's good music. I think it's good music. That's all. Alright, so I have 3 of their albums here, and I'll go into all of them, all in chronological order. This, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, self-titled album. This is their first album. Good album. Good album. It only has 6 songs on here. Take a Pebble's good. Goes on for 12 minutes. This also has Lucky Man, which was a bit of a hit for them. Still played on classic rock radio stations. And yeah, I can't really remember. Even though I listened to this just a couple weeks ago, I'm really having a hard time remembering some of the songs here. I know Take a Pebble is pretty good. Knife Edge, Lucky Man. I think those would be my 3 picks there. Those would be my top 3. So yeah, good album. And, there's that. The next one I have is their second album, and personally, so far, this is my favorite of theirs. Tarkus. Wonderful album art. Got like a mechanical or robotic military armadillo tank or whatever. I don't know what this is supposed to be. This is a very good album. Fun to have on vinyl because it's just very colorful. Look at this. Look how colorful that is. The first side is just one song, the self-titled track, Tarkus, and it's split into 7 different parts. This is probably what people meant about them being over the top and pretentious. But I love it. I think it's that whole first side is very impressive. And good side. Second side has more is all just separate tracks, not 20-minute epics or anything like that. I like Jeremy Bender. Bitches Crystal's good. I think all the songs are good, although I will admit that Are You Ready, Eddie feels out of place with the other songs on here. Like 50s, rock and roll, and everything else here is would fall on the lines of progressive rock in the 1970s, so I don't know what that song was doing on there, but overall, this is my favorite of theirs so far, so there's that. The last one I have, which is a live album, Pictures at an Exhibition. This is their rendition of the musical piece of the same name, playing all of it in its entirety. I cannot remember the original composer. I should know this because I did have a college course in musical appreciation. I can't even pronounce the guy's name. Well, it's them performing the song, and I mean, it should be considered all one piece, but it's split into several different songs, and then it ends with a song called Nut Rocker, which says here it was written by Kim Fowley, who was the manager for the Runaways. Yeah, this is pretty good. It is a little bit monotonous. Like it feels like the same thing over and over again, but just, again, these guys were masters at their instruments, and it's worth listening to once, I think. So, this is a good album here. So yeah, that's about it for me. So, I don't know if I'm going to get any more albums by ELP or what's going to happen in the next couple months. With Iggy Pop, I might see him in concert. He is coming in the area in April, so something to look forward to. That is if I do go. But yeah, that's about it for me. So yeah. Talk to y'all later. Bye.